Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday, April 26th, 2017 episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays. This is Eric Cook, and I'm with WSI Digital Marketing, where we work with businesses and organizations on helping them better understand and leverage the power of the internet as a strategic business tool. You can learn more about me and all the fun stuff we get to do here at WSI online at www.poweredbywsi.com. Jeff Simpkins from Community Bank Consulting is here with me, my good friend and Free Webinar Wednesday partner. Jeff, say hello to everybody out there in Free Webinar Wednesday world.
Greetings, everybody. As Eric indicated, I'm Jeff Simpkins. I'm with Community Bank Consulting, Inc. And you can learn more about me and all the fun things we do at Community Bank Consulting, Inc. online at www.communitybankconsulting.com.
Awesome. So what's new in your world? How's life? How's the weather? Getting hot? Nice and toasty down there in the south?
What's new in my world is I think swimming season in the pool will officially open on Saturday. It's 90 degrees today and supposed to be 90 every day between now and then. And the water temperature should be up around 80 degrees, I think.
Very cool. Hashtag jealous. It's supposed to be a little bit warmer today, but the weatherman said it's going to get ucky and wet this weekend, right about the time we want to get outside and try to get a little of the yard work done. So if we could get society to flip the whole 2-day work week to 5-day weekend, I think I would vote for that. Maybe that's a political position that would definitely get my vote, although I doubt that that's going to happen. So I'm not going to hold my breath. Anyway, so today we thought we would chat, and it happened about a week or so ago. But here at Free Webinar Wednesdays, we tend to chat a little bit about social media stuff, and Facebook had their 2017 F8 conference. I thought we would spend a little bit of time kind of walking through. Buffer is a tool that I use on a regular basis. I love their blog. They've got awesome content. I retweet a lot of their stuff. And so they did a really nice recap of kind of the 10 major things, and they say marketers, but I can say business owners or just organizations in general might want to know about what's going on with Facebook and some of the implications that may have with other social networks and just societal trends in general, really. So before we officially jump in, just as a reminder for those of you who are joining us on another occasion, and those of you that are new, Free Webinar Wednesdays are recorded and made available at freewebinarwednesdays.com, so you can check out this as well as past episodes online. And during today's conversation, if you are listening and joining us live, if you're catching this on the replay, it's going to be kind of hard to do that. But if you're listening live and you've got a question or a comment or you want us to clarify something, please feel free to use the chat functionality and let us know. We like it when our live audience pays attention and engages and interacts with us. Makes it kind of fun. And so with that, Jeffrey, I know I shared this article with you and I've kind of looked through it a little bit. And I don't know if anybody out there in the Free Webinar Wednesday world stumbled upon it. This came up through that Zest plugin that I use in my Chrome tab a couple of times, and just kind of spurred some thoughts on some things to think about, and thought this would be a good topic of conversation. So anything jump out at you in this when you saw it for the first time, or should we just kind of go in and kind of bang out like a Letterman top 10 and recap what the folks over at Buffer have said with our commentary?
So everything in here looks pretty interesting. Let's go down the list. Let's do it Letterman style.
Letterman style. All right. Let me get my black marker out, and I'm going to paint a gap in between my teeth real quick. So if you're interested in snagging a copy of this, it's pretty easy. Just go out and do F8 recap Buffer, or go to the Buffer blog, and you can find it there. And again, shout out to the folks at Buffer. If you haven't caught my accolades of the Buffer app, this is a really cool app that you can use that synchronizes and auto posts content that you find very similar to Hootsuite, but you can go ahead and you can put content into Buffer and share it across multiple platforms. They've also got a pretty cool little tool called Pablo, which is a nifty little way of creating image-based content that you can send. And so you can create little images with quotes, and use them for Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. And so Buffer's got a lot of really cool stuff going on, and you can see I have Buffer installed, so it's saying I can share with Buffer if I wanted to. But if we see what Alfred has talked about, again, Facebook's F8 conference, if you've not heard of it before, a lot of the big technology companies have kind of main events. Google has theirs called I/O, which is more of a developers conference where they kick off things. That's where they introduce like the Cardboard virtual reality viewer and the Daydream and the Pixel devices. Apple has its big event where it announces new products and services. And so you've got Facebook obviously being one of the 100-pound gorillas in the social and digital world. They've got their developer conference where they kind of announce what Mr. Zuckerberg and the rest of the folks in the blue are thinking of. So the recap is available as a video, so you can check that out and watch that. As it relates to the very first kind of augmented reality, and I'll kind of say virtual reality to kind of pull in a Google element, mentioned a few shows ago that I ended up getting one of the Daydream viewers by Google, which is like the goggle that you put on your face and you put your phone in it. I have been watching more and more YouTube videos through that. Slap on a pair of headphones. Granted, I look a little goofy when I'm sitting in the chair downstairs, but while my wife is watching her TV shows, which sometimes don't necessarily match with my tastes, I am consuming a lot more content using my goggles and my phone and just kind of going into my own virtual reality world. And so I'll probably end up kind of watching this video as well in that way. But the first item that they talked about was the concept of augmented reality. So Jeff, thoughts on augmented reality? And should we maybe have a discussion around augmented versus virtual reality and how they may differ? I don't know if you want to tackle that one.
I'm going to let you tackle it. Yes, I think we should have a discussion there. I was reading the description in the article, and there's some really good information in here. One of the things that it talks about that I would like to hear your thoughts on are adding things such as 3D objects.
Yep. So the Daydream viewer that I talked about, and it says right here, sci-fi looking glasses, or the goggles, that's more of a virtual reality, because I put those on, I can hop in, I can go into a gaming environment, and the environment that I'm in has been created for me. The augmented reality means that you are still experiencing the reality of the real world, but it's being enhanced or augmented, thus by the name, it's being enhanced or augmented by additional information that's overlaid on top of it. And they give the example of Pokemon Go. We don't hear a whole lot about Pokemon, although I have to admit, I still have a buddy that is an avid Pokemon trainer, who goes out and yes, he's in his late 40s, and still sends me screenshots of interesting little Pokemon and Pokemen and Pokewomen or Pokeanimals from a variety of different interesting locations. But if you've ever used Pokemon Go, or you've got a child that has used it, you'll know that it interacts with the camera. So you're looking at the world through your camera, so you see what's going on in the real world. But then the augmentation takes place when these little creatures are, standing on a park bench or, on somebody's shoulder, those sorts of things. And so it puts the concept of augmented reality in, since we're all walking around these little cameras in our pockets, it puts augmented reality in a more doable, I guess, achievable reality for all of us, because we can open up our phone and we can look at things, and then it allows information to be superimposed on top of the process. And so they seem somewhat similar. I've heard people kind of use the terms interchangeably, but it's important to note that from an augmented reality perspective, it's taking something that you already have access to or you're already experiencing, and it's adding an additional layer of information, functionality, whether you can buy something or you've got, additional info, like a historical marker where now you get a little pop-up that kind of gives you details or loads in some information from Wikipedia. So I think that hopefully is a good distinguishing definition between augmented and virtual. So that being said, Jeff, sounded like you had some thoughts and observations on this. So why don't you go ahead and kind of share some of what you saw?
Well, that was a great explanation of what augmented reality is. I've actually been doing a good bit of reading in the last couple weeks, and just since we have kind of a business theme to this show, one of the ways that I've heard it discussed being used in this research that I've done over the last few weeks is in shopping circumstances, where you will take something. I think it may even refer to this in the blog post that we're using as our basis for the show, but it talks about like in a shopping situation where you can point your camera at an object and using an augmented reality function could provide information on the availability of that product from other sources, additional information about the product, and so forth.
Cool.
Yeah, which I think is really cool. I can picture being in a place like Best Buy, and when I go into look for things that I want to use with the Amazon device that we refer to under the code name Sally, there might be 20 different. I use Wemo devices to control the fluorescent lights under my countertop in the kitchen. And when I went to Best Buy, there were 20 different things like the Wemo plugins. It would have been really, really awesome to be able to use an augmented reality function to point at one of those devices and learn more about it on the spot.
Yep, exactly. So I know one of the browsers, and it's since gone bye-bye, but one of the browsers several years ago that attempted to do some sort of an augmented reality, I guess it wasn't a browser, it was more of a search engine, was a search tool called Layer. And you could type in, I'll just use casinos, for example, because there's one right across the highway from where we live. I could type in the word casino, and then what would happen is instead of getting a traditional Google search result where you would get a list of all the casinos in Battle Creek and Mount Pleasant and New Buffalo, it would give you the ability to hold your camera up and it would show you your horizon, and you could turn it and I could point it to the south, and I could see that within the next mile and a half that the Firekeepers Casino was off in the horizon. And then I could point it north and I could see 95 miles to the north is Soaring Eagle up in Mount Pleasant. And so you were actually getting search results. So if you wanted to have a restaurant, if you were looking for a veterinarian or a dentist, or you would be able to go ahead and put in, it would augment the camera and it would superimpose where all these different locations are at, almost like a street view blended with a search result. So so Layer has since gone away. I think it's reinvented itself more as an app/service that you can use to help provide an augmented experience for your own place of business. But that was one of my very first kind of exposures to the concept of augmented reality. And it had similar characteristics to what you're talking about, Jeff. So
So I've got a question that I bet I'm wondering, and I bet some of the folks in our audience are wondering. Do you use the Amazon app on your phone?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever used the feature that, for example, there's a store nearby called Mast General Store, and I was in there a few weeks ago looking at some things, and I wanted to price shop on the Amazon app. Well, I opened it up and clicked the camera icon, and now you can actually point your camera at a device, and it will use the image of the device to find similar items.
Yes.
Would that be considered a type of augmented reality?
I would say yes. I would classify it probably not in a pure sense. Google Goggles is a similar functionality in the sense that Google Goggles, Google Translate, for example, that's a really cool augmented reality app that you can get where you can download Google Translate to your phone. You can say translate from English to Spanish, and then you can point your camera with the Google Translate installed at a stop sign, and it'll translate the word stop into the equivalent Spanish, which unfortunately high school Spanish is way, way, way gone. So I probably could Google what stop is. I think it's arrêt in French, but I don't know what it is in Spanish. Maybe somebody in the chat room can help me out here. But that will augment, and it actually changes, which is kind of crazy because you're looking at the stop sign, but the version of the stop sign that's on your camera looks exactly like the stop sign, but it's taken the word stop and replaced it with whatever language you've chosen. The more readable or legible the language is, the better, obviously. But that's also a version of augmented reality, and I've even read articles where the augmentation can even take place during a conversation where you're from France and I'm from the United States. We talk to each other in Skype, and I say, hey, Jeff, how's it going? And then Skype recognizes that, translates it in real time, and then regurgitates it to you in French, bonjour, Jeff, ça va? And so then you respond back to me in French, and it regurgitates that to me in English, and you may say, très bien, merci, and it might say, very good, thank you. So, and there's the extent of my French knowledge. So it's about as multilingual as Eric's going to get today. And so that also has some augmentation built within it, even though you're not necessarily looking at stuff through a camera. I think when you kind of look at F8 and you think, well, does this have the ability to then trickle into the Messenger application? Because we're using Facebook's Messenger to text people back and forth. It has a phone. You can do voice conversations. So I didn't catch that in any of this, but, just thinking down the road with all the data that Facebook has from all the countries and, cultures. So anyway, going down a little bit of a rabbit hole there. Sorry about that. But
oh, that's okay. That's really cool. I actually have used the Google Translate app quite a bit. I just haven't used it recently. I've used it a lot in the browser when I'm conversing with someone that their native language is not English, and it works pretty darn well. But I'm gonna have to try the use of it on the phone with the camera function.
Yep, it's kind of cool. So, so the next item that they talked about was camera effects, which is somewhat of an augmented reality because you're taking a picture of yourself and you're adding a minion or a lightning bolt or stars, whatever the case is, on top of your photo. But this is a clear shot across the bow, as far as I'm concerned, of the folks at Snapchat. And, I've read some articles. Snapchat changed its name to Snap. They went public, came out of the gate with, gangbusters, and now things have kind of waned. Because as companies like Facebook, which also owns Instagram, are starting to do more of these kind of Snapchat-like filters and engagement opportunities. You'll be curious to see in a year from now if we're still talking about Snapchat. I don't know.
We'll be interested.
So, yeah.
I can see some real opportunities to use the effects platform as a brand building opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I guess the big reason, and they said it in the conference as well, but people are sharing less information on Facebook, and you can see in the blog post it actually says over 20% less of the original personal content. And so what I think they're doing in this instance is they're trying to give people the ability to create something kind of cool and fun that they're interested in sharing. And while it may not be a blog post or a news article from your business, if it gives you an opportunity to get in front of people, you find something and it gets shared and distributed around. And even on the augmented reality comment up above, it talked about, should you as a business try to figure out a way that you can create some of these augmented experiences, and then maybe in the bottom right hand corner you've got a little drop of your logo. The Minions obviously is there because that's a pretty big brand, from a movie and an entertainment perspective. But this is kind of their foray into the augmented reality environment, and it'll be curious to see how this makes an impact, if at all, on Snapchat, and particularly in the younger users of social networking.
So just an observation, and you just hit on what I noticed right away on the camera effects platform, is that the photos that they're using to illustrate the feature are featuring users that are not in the typical age group of Facebook users.
Yeah. Try to draw some attention to the younger demo. Yeah.
Yeah. It would appear that perhaps they are making an effort to hit the younger demographic with some of their newer features, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So now we're jumping into virtual reality. So I've mentioned the Daydream Viewer, which is what I have through Google. There's the Samsung VR Viewer, which works with the Samsung devices. Several years ago, Facebook actually bought Oculus Rift for, I'm going to say this wrong. It had a B in it. I don't know, it was like $4 billion or $6 billion, but they spent a good chunk of money buying Oculus, and then like within 2 or 3 months, when Facebook had their Facebook I/O, they released Cardboard, which was basically a $2 version of an augmented reality viewer that was made literally out of cardboard that you could fold up in a matter of minutes and put on your face. It wasn't nearly as nice and fancy as Oculus was, but it was kind of a funny little joke that I think was at least the start of the Daydream Viewer. But in this instance, with the Facebook Spaces, this is really the augmentation taken to the next level. So now, instead of it taking your environment and putting stuff on top of it, this is actually creating a virtual environment that you go into. And so you've got things like avatars, you've got things like virtual spaces. When somebody clicks like or share or surprise, these little emoticons and the Facebook reactions are flying at you. This kind of reminds me of Second Life, which is, I think it's still around. I dabbled in it years ago, but it's a virtual reality environment where you create an avatar, you kind of assume a persona, and then you can interact with other people that are also doing that, almost like a SimCity video gaming kind of environment. As I agree, and Buffer has said it, and it was mentioned, it's probably a while before this becomes mainstream, just because the technology that's there, it's not super comfortable. There's still some refinements that need to be made, but it could create some opportunities for you to kind of build an environment that gives people the ability to transport themselves. I know we just got back from Las Vegas, and with my Pixel phone, I took a couple of 360 camera shots, and now I can put on my goggles, I can go into my Daydream, and I can be right back in front of the Venetian. and I can look around and I can see the traffic. I can see across the street to the Mirage. I can see the gondolas. And so depending on the industry that you're in, and they've mentioned a few here, I know one of the clients that we work with is a museum. They're looking at ways they can create a virtual experience for people to transport themselves. So if they have a special exhibit and they want to make it available to people that can't travel there, they can download the actual exhibit and load it into one of these virtual reality devices and give them the ability to experience it. Now, they're not going to sell a ticket. They're not going to get somebody to come. But I also don't think if you actually lived in the town, or, you know, between buying a $10 ticket or just downloading stuff, people are still going to buy the ticket and come to that place. But putting an augment or a virtual experience out there may help to get more people interested in, this is really cool from a virtual reality environment. We need to figure out a way that we can get there. I want to schedule an appointment to talk to the real estate agent about that house, whatever the case may be. So I think in some industries, virtual reality is closer than others. I don't know exactly how it would work in the world of banking that you and I play in quite often, Jeff, but that's kind of what I'm seeing on this one. So any thoughts on the virtual reality? Number 3?
Well, to respond specifically to how it could be used in banking, I'm just looking at the list of ideas in the blog post, and it says educational institutions and online learning platform could let students attend classes together. I think there's an opportunity in the financial world for financial institutions to teach their target market some things like how to apply for a mortgage loan, business lending, and things like that.
Yeah. Financial education. Cool. Okay. And you can see Facebook's coming out with their own little 360 camera. So I've actually been looking at 360-degree cameras. I got a GoPro a few years ago and thinking that it would be really cool to slap a 360-degree camera on the handlebar of my mountain bike and take that out for a little ride. So I don't know. Who knows? We'll have to see if Mr.
Something tells me there'll be one in your future.
Probably. Yeah, probably. So Giphy and Facebook Live. Not a lot of people are probably familiar with Giphy, but Facebook Live certainly is taking the world by storm. So Jeff, I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm going to let you, if you would like to, start first.
Well, I would be among one of those that is not familiar with Giphy. You're right, Facebook Live has gotten a lot of press lately. It's been both a great thing and a challenging thing for Facebook. It's one of those new technologies. I think they started introducing it over a year ago, maybe as much as 2 years ago, and there's still a learning curve in how they're working with it. So So for those of you that are, and I've not really used it a ton either, but animated GIFs or GIFs, it's like potato. I say GIF. Some people say GIF, but animated GIFs, you probably all have seen them. It's basically an image that rotates through a sequence of frames, almost like the old school flip books that you used to do. And I'll probably totally date myself because I'll say, as a kid, you used to get like a little notepad and you'd do a little stick figure, and then the next one you'd do a stick figure, and before you knew it, you had 30 pages and the stick figures running across the bottom of your notepad if you flip those through. So essentially that's what a GIF image is it takes a series of images and kind of blends them together so it looks like a video, but it's really an image or it's a picture. And so Giphy is a platform that allows you to find funny little animated GIFs that you can add to email, you can post to social media, and with this recently new announced product and their GIF sharing capabilities, you can now enable that functionality directly within a live video stream. And so they provided kind of an example. They went live on the FA conference here that you can check out, but you can see if you've used
Facebook's live video, and it works at the page level for businesses as well as at the individual level. Here's how you can go about actually enabling Giphy in order to be part of your process. And then you get to select from a variety of different little animated GIFs and fun little things that you can go ahead and use. It's just adding more spice, more fun, more, I guess, personality to the post that otherwise wouldn't have been there.
Just occurred to me as you were talking, you just described the way animation originally worked when characters such as Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny were originally introduced. And I was just kind of marveling at what an accomplishment it was to do animation by hand back in the day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Crazy. Messenger business bots. I have one of these actually that I've subscribed to, and I get my little business bot update from TechCrunch every evening with a collection of 5 or 6 of the more recent and interesting news articles out of the technology industry. But if you're not familiar, I mean, first and foremost, Messenger is huge. It's dedicated Messenger platform. So even if you don't have a Facebook page, which I know that there are a few people still out there that don't, or a Facebook profile, you can go to messenger.com and sign up for at least a Messenger account, which gives you the ability to use it as a chat tool and interact with people. But what's happening now is businesses, I mean, I've seen it mostly with news agencies, but businesses now can create these little business bots, which are automated programs that can deliver information to your Messenger tool, your Messenger app, on a scheduled or periodic or as needed basis. So thinking about, from a bot perspective, it's almost like text messages and text notifications. Anything that you would want to be able to try to get directly to someone that you felt was worthy of them subscribing to could be built into a bot. So in the banking space, low balance notifications, ACH credit notifications, security warnings, if your local branch office is going to be closed due to bad weather or a holiday announcement, those sorts of things. But even to deliver relevant content, it could be financial education, the most recent blog post, those sorts of things. So
great
there's
tools
also
that you could tie in. You could tie in with predictive analytics. Yeah.
So there's some other stuff to make relevant suggestions at the right time. So, as a customer happens to be getting close to an auto dealership or a car lot where they're spending a lot of time, I would suspect at some point we would have the ability to geofence that, recognize what type of business it is, and if the customer has opted into bot messaging for their financial institution, you could have an automatic bot that says, hey, don't forget us, we've got great rates on auto loans. Or you're walking by a Jimmy John's and it proactively pushes a little notification that says, bring a friend, half off the second sub, those sorts of things. And so there's companies out there that are developing apps that do this already that may or may not be a little bit freaked out by somebody like Facebook baking this or potentially baking this into the native functionality of their app and giving brands the ability to use it to help promote their business or get their message across. So the folks at HubSpot have got a pretty cool little article that talks about chatbot marketing that you can link to there and kind of get a little bit more information about how a chatbot could be used to help with your marketing and promotional activities. So other thoughts on that, Jeffrey?
I think you covered that one. Let's move on to the Messenger Discover tab.
Yep. So this is almost like an around me type functionality. Again, especially if you're a business that relies on local foot traffic or the proximity of your customer to your place of business, there's now the capability within Messenger where you can go in and you can kind of hit the discover, and this will give you the ability to see what stuff is around you. If there's companies that have bots, if there's nearby places, if there's businesses that are close by. And so you can kind of get an idea of the number. I mean, they've said over 1 billion people using Messenger each month. You may be able to generate some really nice traffic to your business, particularly if your business is one that relies on foot traffic and people being out and about. I think driving this type of functionality to the mobile device, companies that I see that may be somewhat concerned about this would be companies, Foursquare jumps to my mind. And I've read some articles recently about how Foursquare is taking their customer data based off of when you use Foursquare and, what's the app that they launched, they spawned off. It's got a little B. I've uninstalled it because they pissed me off because I didn't like having to go to 2 different apps. But the data that Foursquare, the company, collects about when people are out and about, when they're checking in, foot traffic into different areas, they're starting to take that data and sell it back to businesses and make it available because it's very important, very relevant, powerful data. You now are seeing Facebook kind of getting into that market. Swarm is the name of the app. It just came to me. Squirrel. So I don't know if I've not played with this, but I used to be a real big fan of Foursquare back in the day, but it's kind of fallen out of favor of local check-in type apps just because of the separation, and several of the other ones have kind of disappeared. So thoughts on Discover?
Well, I want to comment on something that you said in describing the Discover app. You talked about selling data back to businesses, and I want to reference a discussion that we had last week about the amount of data that Google has on us. You introduced us to a functionality that you can go in when you're logged into your Google account and actually get a copy of much of the data that Google knows about us. I did that after our show last week and had them to deliver the results of the information to Google Drive. About 2 to 3 days later, these zip files showed up in my Google Drive that were about 1 terabyte.
Holy
that
crap!
Contained, I'm guessing, most of the information that Google knows about me, but I'm not making this up. My Google Drive usage jumped by almost 1 terabyte from the information they sent back to me.
Wow. I hope you didn't have that folder set to automatically synchronize with your hard drive, or that could have done some pretty serious damage to your computer's hard drive.
Yeah, it would have filled my computer's hard drive up. Fortunately, Google has that feature set so that it creates its own folder in Drive. So unless you're syncing your whole Drive account, it won't sync back to your devices.
Nice. So, yeah. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see on the Discover, and then to what extent they make that available to businesses, especially if they're relying on foot traffic and local activity. So, and as we're kind of going through this, I know you can see that there's some links here. Come back and visit this. Check out some of the links because, this goes directly to the Facebook page that talks about the Messenger platform and the Discover functionality. So if you wanted to actually start exploring with it and taking advantage of it, it's giving you a quick and easy way of actually jumping right into those things. So I'll admit this is a new word for me, parametric QR codes. So QR codes, when we were talking about augmented reality and the Amazon app, one of the very first things that I started doing, and Amazon had a little scanner where you could, instead of it just looking at the product itself and knowing based off of what the product looked like, you had a barcode scanner where you could actually flip the product over, scan the UPC code, and that would give you the ability to check things out. Snapchat is pretty famous for its little snap codes. So you've got the little Snapchat guy with the different information. They've taken the QR code from just a square, boxy, black and white to the little Snapchat. And then Messenger has had its own little Messenger code that you could download and use as part of your Messenger. So if you wanted to print that somewhere and make it easier for people to connect with you on Messenger, or now you can see these QR codes are giving it the ability where you could take the code and place it someplace. So while people are out and about, they could actually scan that with their phone and give them the ability to connect directly to you on Messenger, get your bot, you know, and so you can kind of see some examples, organizing from a conference perspective, attendees scanning in with QR codes. I know some of the conferences I've been attending, Jeff, they're talking about radio frequency and kind of proximity scanning devices, so they can get an idea based off of your badge where it's traveled, what booths you're spending more time at. A lot of conferences will also have little bingo cards or punch cards. So if you visit all the vendors and get the sticker or the punch or the little, you know, whatever, you can enter that in for a chance to win a bigger prize. So it's the conference organizer's attempt to try to get you to go out and have a conversation with everybody. But in this instance, when you digitize that process and push it into an environment like Facebook where you're all interacting, then now you're, instead of just a punch card, you're now enabling data, and that data exchange can go both ways. So when I check in, maybe that's a symbol to the organizer that I checked in at a particular vendor's booth, but now maybe I can opt to get vendor information or share my information directly with a vendor. So instead of giving them a business card or taking a business card, we can now start exchanging that information better from an electronic perspective. So this, I think, is kind of interesting to watch. I can say I don't think anybody has ever really scanned my Messenger tag, although I've pulled it up and I've used it in presentations before. Most people don't even realize really that all of this stuff is actually there. So thoughts on QR codes in general, or any of this particular parametric component?
While you were talking, I looked up the definition of parametric, and all it means is parameter driven.
Yeah.
Which makes fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah. I love your illustration of using it at a trade show. There's a conference that I go to every year that has a really strong app that they use, and I can see how this feature could work well in environments like that.
Yep. So the next one is smart replies for pages, and this is, I think, a little bit different than the automated replies, which has been available now for almost a year. And if you're not familiar with the automated replies, there's 3 settings now at the page level in Facebook that you can set. So you can have a welcome greeting, you can have an automated reply, and you can have an out of office, or if your business has particular hours, you know, you are available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. And if it's somebody that tries to initiate a chat request with you after 6 p.m., you can have something come back after 6 p.m. that doesn't normally show during the day. First time somebody wants to interact with you and have a conversation through Messenger, you can send back, in the banking world again, you can send back a disclosure that says, you know, hey, we're happy to chat with you. This is for informational and fun purposes, but please don't share customer-related information or confidential info. And, you know, we'll never request that information from you as well. You're limited on characters, so you probably wouldn't be able to say all of that, but it at least helps set the stage when somebody goes to your page or they find your brand on messenger.com and they want to start having a conversation with you, you can have some of that go back. Where smart messages are going, and smart replies, I guess, is using artificial intelligence to try to identify some of the most frequently asked questions that you may get, and to be able to then have a series of responses. So when somebody asks, you know, are you guys open on Saturdays? You've been asked that question before, so there's no reason that somebody from the organization has to respond to that. That individual can set that up. Social media manager can say, if somebody asks about hours on Saturdays or weekends, you can craft a response, and then you can have that response go back and say, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, Saturday from 9 until noon. Additional hours and information is available at our website, blah, blah, blah. And so that can go back, and that might very well take care of 80% of the people that, if asking for your hours is a pretty common thing, you might be able to handle a vast majority of those requests with some sort of a smart reply. So I think the challenge here, and Jeff, I know you've seen it and I've seen it, is when you get a smart reply that doesn't seem to be configured quite right, then there certainly is some risk there, because then instead of being a helpful little tool, now it looks like you're just kind of phoning in your response and trying to escape real customer service with an automated technology, and that's not a good thing either. So definitely something that you want to kind of play around with, but it might have some relevancy depending on what types of questions that you get asked on a regular basis.
This type of functionality has been around for a long time, and there are some companies that are doing it quite well. Hopefully Facebook will do a good job with it.
Yep. So Facebook analytics, so it looks like they're kind of beefing up the type and the amount of information that you'll be able to have access to. Business page owners have always had access to Facebook Insights, which is going to give you kind of some page level detail on posts that are performing well, and visitors and likes and unlikes and those sorts of things. But it looks like the analytics platform is getting beefed up. Info. It's all about information and data. So being able to kind of take a look at it, it says, from an implication for marketers, it could be the Google Analytics for social media. And so, whether it ends up becoming that, but, I wouldn't think anybody would dispute that Facebook is the behemoth when it comes to social media utilization. And so as marketers struggle, and I sometimes refer to ROI of social media as ROE, the return of engagement, as opposed to your actual return on investment dollars. But now creating audiences and taking a look at different things like, your pages and apps, if people are interacting with your bot, how many times people are interacting and having conversations with you through Messenger, as they provide more and more channels to connect and engage and interact, the more platforms that you're going to want to monitor to just see what's going on. So the last item, with 11 minutes to go here, the whole global connectivity. And, we work with a lot of businesses that, it's not to say that community banks really don't care about global connectivity, but the brands that we work with, and I think that would be safe to say, you as well, Jeff, some of the local capabilities are probably of more interest to us and to our customers than kind of the global reach. But the fact that Facebook is really kind of taking its initiative from a global perspective to try to bring the world together is a pretty, talk about where we came as it relates to animation and Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny with the flip cards and hand drawings. We talked about Google and Google Maps and the moonshot that it was to say, somebody from Google, I'm going to create a program that's going to map the entire world with all the roads and driving directions. Say that 20 years ago, people would have laughed at you. So who knows what the Facebook Global Connectivity Initiative is going to end up doing and what that's really going to mean. And maybe the smaller community banks, smaller local institutions will be able to somehow leverage more of a global brand and a global marketplace. So I don't know. Final thoughts on the global concept?
Personally, I love the global concept. Totally agree with you. In our work with community banks, we don't get a chance to to really get exposed to features like this. It's just on a personal basis, it's been something that I've been fascinated with for decades, and had always continued to look for opportunities to do international work outside the United States. Have done that on a limited basis with some folks in Canada, but I love seeing this type of thing. I think in the world, we're in an interesting time right now with lots going on politically that makes the world look like it's becoming less connected in some ways. But I think that's going to be, I'm not going to call it a little bump in the road. I'm going to call it a significant bump in the road, but I think it's not going to be a forever bump in the road. So I like seeing this.
The one thing is I keep kind of reading over the description of this that I think has some impact at all levels of organizations is the concept of building a community. And I'm reminded of a bank that I met last year at Bank Social that had been getting some really good traction because it built a private Facebook group, which is a community, but it built a private Facebook group for customers that belong to their senior travel checking account program. And while the engagement rates of their Facebook page were on par with the rest of the world, 6% engagement and interactivity, boosting posts to get visibility, by building a community around a particular topic and kind of spurring the discussion that needed to make sure that it was getting some good maintenance or, I guess, care and feeding by a community manager. So the individual within the bank that actually was responsible for the senior travel program and kind of, hey, we're going to Budapest next, quarter, or we're going to be going to Branson, Missouri, or whatever the case is. They typically had one big trip that went outside of the United States and then multiple smaller trips. But they would go in and they would post pictures and do updates, and then people would also share their pictures when they went, which would get other people excited. So then new customers that joined the bank's checking account program, the checking account involved, I think it was like a $15 a month fee, but you got travel discounts and all the other stuff, much more targeted at the senior, kind of the older, more mature population. But when somebody got a new account and they became eligible to join that community, it was the activity of the others in the community, not just the project coordinator or kind of the manager of that division within the bank, that helped to build that personality or that sense of community. And so they found really good retention. It was one of their more popular accounts. People really liked it. And when they looked at the engagement rates of the posts and the comments in that private group compared to the Facebook page, head and shoulders difference as far as, people that are interacting with the group itself. So, so definitely something to kind of think about, that you may not necessarily think of it from a global, like worldwide perspective, but is there a way that you can identify some communities within your own organization that are VIP customers or a particular topic or a subset of information that you wanted to maybe be able to dive in and create some exclusivity on, that might make it kind of a value added perk. It doesn't cost the bank anything to have a private Facebook group, and these people are paying $15 a month for this travel club checking account program. And this is one of the retention tools because not everybody can participate in the group. So, so that idea just kind of sprung to mind and had to make sure to share it. So
it's a great idea. I had a client that did run a travel club that I don't think it was, I'm sure it wasn't exclusively for seniors, but because, retirees have more time, it ended up attracting that target audience. And I think you're spot on in talking about how this type of tool can work well. And the issue I've seen happen in community banking and perhaps in other types of businesses is it's not a short-term deal. It's one of those things that you have to go into it for the long term because, well, there's a snowball effect. It takes some time to get it up and running, but once you do, the level of engagement can be significant, and you can hit a point where you really start getting growth without doing new stuff to cause that growth to happen.
Yep, exactly. So cool. Well, we are at the top of the hour, my friend. Look at that. We've gobbled up another 60 minutes and hopefully provided our audience with all sorts of cool little nuggets of wisdom that they can take with them for the remainder of the week and beyond. So hopefully some of the ideas and concepts from the F8 conference will spur some thoughts, give you some inspiration. I don't think that it's just Facebook. I think it's the internet in general and kind of the way of society as it relates to our digital lives. But certainly Facebook is leading the charge there, and you know, it's always cool to see what the big boys are thinking of, because they've got armies of people that get paid to do nothing but think about this stuff. So it's good to pay attention. Where can I get one of those jobs? So cool. Well, that wraps it for me. Jeff, anything else on your part as a closing statement?
Just a comment. I have actually gotten a ton of tools that I've used personally as a result of our discussion in the past few weeks. So we've been a bit more unstructured than we have in the past in terms of coming to our hour with structured topic. It's been more of a kind of a buffet, and it's worked really well for me. I actually one of the things that came up a couple weeks ago was you were using Grammarly, and I've been using it a couple weeks, and it's become a pretty important part of my daily routine now.
Yep. I've certainly rethought my whole approach to the utilization of commas in lists of items. Thanks to Grammarly. So yeah, it's if there's one thing that Grammarly has done, is it's gotten me using commas differently. So yeah, I would agree. I think I know for some of our free webinar Wednesdays folks, the set guests, and we will come back to that, but I think the unstructured, just kind of seeing what has been going on and trying to pick relevant information for the audience. Hopefully those of you that have been listening and attending live have been finding these beneficial. Does it mean that if you've got the name of somebody that's got a great message to tell or a story to share, we're certainly always open to bringing those folks on. But these conversations have also been enlightening, because it's kind of forced me to go out and investigate some new things and learn some stuff myself. So it's been a good two-way street. So cool. Well, with that, we will go ahead and wrap another Free Webinar Wednesdays. You can go to freewebinarwednesdays.com here in the next several hours, once the video is downloaded and compiled and uploaded and all that other fun stuff, to YouTube, to catch the replay and to share it with others. And Jeff and I will look forward to seeing you on future episodes right here at freewebinarwednesdays.com. Until then, have an awesome week, everybody. Take care, and thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.